Lester Eubanks was the guy who escaped from prison at his age 80, African American. Lester Eubanks, not Edward Fairbanks. So that's Lester Eubanks, escaped from prison. He was a murderer, an awful man, a terrible fucking man. Deserved to spend his whole life in prison. The death sentence was close to his neck. But he escaped from prison and he became a productive part of society. No murders where he was working. We've discovered him now. He's in the LA area and he's not connected to any murders whatsoever that we can discover. Now, one thing that's quite common is there's two types of escaped prisoners that have life sentences. One is the type that are never found. They become productive. They hide, even though everybody has their face, their name, their warrant. Somehow they still stay under the radar. That's because they're behaving for the rest of their life. They're not even swearing in public. They're not breaking even the smallest rules. Great, that's what we want, right? And then there's the other type of escaped prisoner. That's the escaped prisoners that murder right away. They've been thinking about the person that put them in there for months. You know, when somebody does something to hurt your family or you, like if you get put in the prison for something you didn't do. Like I've almost been put in the prison for something I didn't do, for like having an epileptic seizure, and I'm supposed to be writing up one of my coworkers in the morning. So she comes up with a story. Now, luckily the cameras were there, so there's nothing to bother with that because your cameras don't lie, but people do. So when you have a bad situation and the doctors have no idea you have epilepsy, but in public you're having seizures, that could be a bad thing. Or if you shake in the cold, a police officer has you leave the car and you're shaking, he might think there's drugs in the car. So then he'll leave you out in the cold for an hour while he searches the car. Then you have a seizure and the cop's like, what the fuck is going on here? So these situations can be created only if your doctor does not know you have epilepsy. Now, if you tell your doctor you have epilepsy, why would he still have problems? Well, I'm getting epilepsy medication, so they know I have seizures. They know something is wrong. But why won't they give a diagnosis? Well, because they have over 25 years of my mother's and father's statement, so they don't want to get involved at all. They're just like, we know this kid has this problem, but look at all these other doctors, so we better not touch him. We better not get involved. So I got doctors after doctors that want to help me. They know that this is really bad. They know my mother and father did this to me. They know it's the truth. They can see it in my eyes. They can see it in my injuries. They see me coming into the emergency room unconscious, bloody from seizures. But if they get involved, they have to go against all these doctors that my mother wanted and told stories to that my father paid for. So it's a big mess. The doctors, the medical records, all of it has been screwed with by my family. So when you have problems like that, you can go to jail for just walking down the wrong street. When you're homeless, you can go to jail for going down the wrong street. Well, if somebody's doing 15 years in prison for sleeping on a bench and they just needed somebody to blame, that guy might want to go after the motherfucker framing him. I know the feeling of trying to wait while you hurt, while you're in pain, while you're suffering for somebody else to do the right thing. But it doesn't happen a lot of the time. If somebody frames you, they're not going to come clean just because somebody else is sitting in prison for them. It's just common that people like hurting other people for their own gain. If they can stay out of trouble and they can keep on living their life on the vacation type of side, then why would they bail you out of prison by admitting to their own mistakes? Why? Because they're a good person? Because they follow Jesus? No. These assholes today will walk in the church and then try to murder somebody with their words. You got people trying to hurt people left and right with their words, with their actions, with their cars. You got people that will drink and drive, hit something, keep going. There might be a dead little girl in the news the next day. He's not thinking about it, and then he'll walk in the church the third day. He just murdered a little girl because he was drinking and driving. But he doesn't even know that because he just kept going. Oh, that must have been a big raccoon. Then the drinker driver keeps going, thinking he just hit a raccoon, gets home. On the news, he sees, oh, that poor little girl getting run over. I hope they catch the guy when it's really him. And then he'll walk in the church the next day acting like it's nothing. You got lots of people out there like this who care so little about their own actions and their own words that they're willing to cause harm in other people's lives, so much so that they might even die. I know this for a fact because my own mother and father are doing it to me today, tomorrow, the next day. When I go to the doctors from a seizure next week, yep, my mother and father will be there waiting to hurt me with their words right on paper. When I look at the doctor's eyes and he's like, I wish I could help you, kid, but there's so many doctors your mother and father already wrote down. We got so many contradicting statements. We know you're having seizures. We know you're hurt. But the best we can do is give you Triliptal because you were prescribed it before. It's a stopgap measure, but it should cut into the epilepsy and help you. It is. It's giving me 80% improvement when I'm warm indoors. Well, that's good. That's an improvement, 80% indoors. That's great. Well, can't we try more epilepsy medication? As soon as we have more clearing out some of this old doctor shit, and as soon as we have more background information, absolutely. But my mother and father instead try to cut off doctors, cut off insurance, making things more hard. So I get more injuries, I get more hurt. I still can't return to work because of them, so I have to find another job. Then I still can't return to that job because I need doctor paperwork. So I get another job, but then they need doctor paperwork for me to return to work. Every time. I'm going to run out of jobs, and I do. I run out of gas stations and convenience stores I can run by myself or otherwise. And nobody should have to go through this. Nobody in America has to go through this. It's a crime. It's illegal. What they're doing to me is illegal. Normally, I would go and get the police or I die and the feds get involved like they are. When they have my body, they are going to be pressing charges against the family for what I'm speaking about. But they need a body in their hands. So when I die from this, then they'll press charges against the family. My brother, my sister, and the family will have a black mark against their name. But if they handle this with me, if they're on my side with this, the only person that gets a black mark is my mother. But as long as they're making things worse as I die, that's enough proof for the state and the federal government. Once when they see me dying, knowing that my injuries was caused by other people in the family, and these people continue to make up stories and leave me to deal with their mistakes. It's not like I did this to myself for 25 years. No, absolutely not. I didn't force my mother to slip me pills. It wasn't like I said, Mom, slip me some pills during Batman so I have an overdose and my nervous system is destroyed. Hey, don't listen to the teachers and ignore them. Hey, move me to Texas because I want all the doctors and teachers cut off. No, all I knew is that I needed to be warm because all of a sudden now I'm shaking, having this weird feeling. I can't feel my body. I'm having trouble speaking. Teachers are calling me in the hallway asking me if I'm taking any new medication at home because of my body suddenly changed. I'm writing my name differently. I'm speaking differently. And my speech is going all over the place. And there's something really wrong with my nervous system when I try to talk through the shocks. I don't know what to call it. I don't even know how to call it a shock. It's not even really a shock. It's a nervous system pain, I guess is a way to put it. I still have very little to go on. Now, why is that? Why do I have so little to go on with a neurological disorder? Didn't my parents bring me to a neurologist? Didn't they look into my nervous system and why I can't move? Didn't they look into the overdose and this medication issue? I mean, if your child loses his vision, I mean, you would want to get that looked at, right? No, not my mother, not my father. When I lost my vision and I lost the ability to speak and I lost the ability to feel my body and then I OD'd and passed out on a pile of newspapers, they said that was just an allergy attack. There's nothing to worry about. We don't need to look into it. But your son's sucking on his skin and the teachers are calling home that there's a sudden change in his body and your son is speaking about this at the dog's. No, there's nothing to see here. That's why I suffer today. But we can handle this anytime they want and I get better. But they want me getting worse. They don't want the doctors helping me. If they did, they'd be calling me and asking to help and work this out. Instead, they try to call people and cut off doctors and make fraudulent statements about me like it's all a fantasy. So then the insurance doesn't want to pay for like emergency bracelets that call 911 when I have a seizure. So in that now when I have a seizure, I'm left on the side of the road until somebody finds my body. Before my mother and father and my new stepmother got involved, I had a bracelet. Then they get involved, my bracelet is no longer funded. Why? Because they said this is all a fantasy, it's all a mental illness, don't waste money on him, it's all a red herring, words like that. Then that was with the Department of Health and Human Services worker, Beth, who controls with my insurance, New Hampshire Health and Families. So when they make a report with her, that report goes to my insurance company. So my insurance company no longer wants to pay for anything to do with the epilepsy because my family says it's all made up. Even though my insurance company doesn't know anything, but the neurologist wants me to continue taking my medication and doing these things. But it doesn't matter because now they got a report from Beth. And Beth doesn't know that David is nuts, my roommate who's 84 and senile, but now they do. Now they understand their mistake. But see, my father misled them, confusing them, and David didn't want to admit to his problems. So the Department of Human Services got all mixed up. They had no clue what's going on. They started just cutting off all services, but now they're like, oops, we made a mistake. No, we're sorry. No, state. Oh, Supreme Court in Concord, we didn't mean it. No, his father was misinforming us, I guess. I don't know. David was telling us other stuff. David said he was fine. David said he was fine. We didn't even know he was a sex offender. We didn't know David was spending his rent money, but now we have the records. Now we see the courts. He spent his rent money from the courts too. Now we know Zach's telling the truth. Now we know that David's really nuts. Zach's telling the truth about that. And now we know that Zach's telling the truth about his falls and his epilepsy too. Now we know he's telling the truth, but it's too late because his father already made those fraudulent statements. You can't undo hurting somebody. If you're going to beat me with a bag of rocks, don't then later go, well, I didn't mean it. No, you just beat me with a bag of rocks. Now it's time to come fix it. If you're going to hurt me in these ways, you're going to have to fix your mistake. Or I'm going to have to hurt you in some ways to see how you like it.